Hey, One Piece fans, this is Chris Bolts, and I'm coming in with an episode recap and review of this week's episode 1143, Vegapunk's Secret Plan, a tense worldwide broadcast. Now, I'm just going to come out and say this straight up. This episode was straight garbage in my view. And it starts all with the title right here, a tense worldwide broadcast. Now, before I do get into the content, do make sure you like, share, subscribe, turn on your post notifications. All that good stuff really helps me out. Now, getting off into this and just getting to that title right there, it says a tense worldwide broadcast. First of all, there was no tense worldwide broadcast. The first 10 minutes of this entire episode was pretty much a recap before the title came on, and then after that, it was nothing but Vegapunk coming on, talking about how he's gonna go tell the world this truth about the world, but then his main unit, Shaka, comes out and says, well, you can't do that, we gotta let people get prepared and all this, and we gotta do all this planning, we gotta do all this coordination between all the snail transponders and all this bullshit. And so Vegapunk then comes out and says, okay, I won't tell you. I'll give you guys 10 minutes to prepare. And so all during that time, the episode, the first 10 minutes just goes from island to island, showing all different types of people just going in there, looking at this broadcast, wondering what Vegapunk is going to be saying. And then nothing really happens. We do get a point right here where while they're on the island here, Brogy and Dory, they do engage the Navy, but it's meaningless. Nothing happens. All it does is just them showing off against the Navy. They take a couple of swipes of their big weapons, but other than that, nothing happens. That's it. We flash over here to the Gorosei, the remaining Gorosei who didn't join Saint Saturn on Egghead Island, and they're all talking about, oh, we can't let this broadcast go out. So they're scheming to figure out how they can stop the broadcast from going out. But that's it. That's the first 10 minutes of this episode. You would be remiss if you didn't just fast forward for past the first 10 minutes. You will not miss anything regarding the story whatsoever, because there was no story really being told. It was just people's reaction to what's going to be an important event that is going to happen within the story. So it was a complete and utter waste of time. In fact, you can see the timer down here from the beginning of this episode all the way to right here. That is basically 15 minutes, nearly 15 minutes of this episode was the song, the opening theme, a recap, a little snippet of what Vegapunk was going to say, but he really didn't say anything, and then people's reactions to what they think that Dr. Vegapunk is going to say. Nearly 15 minutes of this episode was wasted. Complete and utter garbage. There was nothing of substance that was said or done in the first 15 minutes of this episode. So if you're going to watch this episode, truthfully, I would say just skip this episode altogether. But if you're going to watch this episode, I would just skip all the way to the 15-minute point. And this is where this episode really takes off. We now go ahead and catch up back with Luffy fighting both the Admiral Kizaru and Saint Saturn. And he's getting ready to do a really cool move right here. Let me just back it up here for a minute. He's getting ready to invent a new move. That's the one cool thing I do like about Luffy, is that every time he fights, he comes up with some type of new move here. And this one right here, he's getting ready to do what he calls his Dawn symbol. And so he's just going to pull them all the way back as far as he can. And then he's just going to clasp them together. And now that move is called Dawn Symbol. And he can do all kinds of weird stuff when he is in his Gear 5 form. So this is actually pretty cool. I really did like this. It's kind of unique. It's really funny and all that. Now you see the end result of them. They're both really flat. Luffy is then going to take both of them, spin them around really fast. This is the symbol part. And then he's just going to toss them. That is really cool. I like that pretty much. But of course, it doesn't have any impact on Saint Saturn. It may have an impact on Kizaru, because Kizaru once again is up to the same level as Luffy, but certainly Saturn is. And I just want to go ahead and fast forward here just to a minute right here, where we're looking at a remorseful Kizaru. He's having a flashback right here. He knows what he did. There's no coming back from that. Him stabbing his own friend Dr. Vegapunk and killing him, there's no coming back from that for him. So he knows he's violated his own sense of justice. If you're not familiar with the types of justice that each of the admirals represent, they each represent their own forms of justice. Let me go ahead and look that up here for a minute. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this One Piece wiki right here. And it gives us the different forms of justice right here. And so if we go down here and look at Kizaru, his is unclear justice. Because as the name implies, Borsalino's justice appears to be rather ambiguous and constantly in flux, showing aspects found in both the lazy justice and absolute justice doctrines. That reflects what's going on with him right here as he's just contemplating what it is that he did. He's not sure if he's really has done the right thing. And it's tormenting him. So I really like that. At least this part is something that is contemplative and makes Kizaru that much more of a sympathetic character in my view, because when we make decisions, we have to rest with our decisions all the time and wonder whether or not if we did the good thing or if we did a bad thing here. So I really like that we have this reflection right here from Kizaru. And again, as I mentioned before, the move that Luffy just did does not work on Saturn, because Saturn is on a whole different level. And you see that he was able to recover, and he's coming back towards Luffy, getting ready to attack and engage him. But this is basically now where we come to the end of the episode, and we see that it won't let me fast forward. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But here we go. So Saint Saturn just completed a summoning spell, and he's getting ready to summon the remaining Gorosei to join him on the island, because they have to stop this broadcast from going out. And I'm just going to go ahead and rewind it back here. This line right here is very interesting, and it's kind of pointed that these men who are in power are saying this line. I want to reference this to something that's happening in current events. I normally don't want to bring politics or any real world events into my commentary or videos on pop culture and everything, but it needs to be said here. We see the men right here saying that we cannot let Vegapunk speak freely. And I'm just going to keep this as ambiguous as I possibly can. If you are afraid of a man who is speaking his mind freely, that should say something about you and your philosophy. It would seem that your philosophy is not strong enough to stand up to scrutiny. If one man with the simple truth can cause your entire philosophy to wreck itself and to be undermined, maybe you need to rethink your philosophy and rethink your worldview, and to try to come to grips with, why is it I am so afraid that this one man can speak his mind such that I want to bring harm to him, or I want to suppress whatever it is that he has to say. And I'm going to leave it at that. Let me go ahead and fast forward over to the preview for next week's episode, which I hope is much better than what we got going here. And you can see that the subtitles for the song are still going up at the top. It's just phenomenal what this episode was. Now we're getting ready to summon all the 5 Gorosei to the island. They're all about to just wreak havoc We're getting ready to see Lucci and Zoro, their fight, which I thought was going to be prominent in this episode, but no, it was not. So next week's episode 1144, The Worst Nightmare, the 5 elders come together. I tell you, this episode was just complete garbage in my view. It's nearly 15 minutes wasted on nothing but fluff, and I would be loath to even call it fluff. It's just garbage in my view. And then the remainder of the act, which was about, 7 minutes or so of just action on Egghead Island. That 7 minutes was good enough, but it was not enough to make up for the rest of this episode. I am giving this episode a 5 out of 10. It's just a basic failure in my view. When I look at episodes, whether it's in anime or in television, my number one thing is, are the characters great? And obviously the characters in One Piece are great, but the second thing I look for is the story advancing or is it just spinning its wheels? The story here did not advance whatsoever. It just stalled for time. There was nothing new learned, no new characters introduced for the most part. We had to go back over retreads of characters that have been forgotten for most of One Piece, that unless you are a hardcore esoterist, and I consider myself a esoterist, but I'm not hardcore of One Piece lore and canon, you won't know who those characters are. And then just 15 minutes of nothing. 5 out of 10. That's my view on this. What do you guys think of this episode? Did you guys think this episode was complete garbage, or did you think it was phenomenal? Whatever your thoughts, jump down in the comments and let me know what you think. And make sure you do like, share, subscribe, turn on those post notifications. All that stuff helps me out. And remember, this is Chris Bolt signing out, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Take it easy.